Hey, good morning, guys. So I thought it might be lab setup if I let you guys follow along, opposed to having somebody try to record what they were doing so you guys can see. The bending glass is I'll read through the procedure with you. I'm going to demo what you guys have been trying to accomplish, and hopefully that gives you guys a better idea of what the hands-on or hand stuff, lab stuff was looking like. All right, so we're working on this lab right here. Right, and the purpose of the lab here is we want to take glass tubing, to use a triangle file to cut the thing in half, and that's going to create some rough. Then what we're going to do is we're going to use our Bunsen burner to fire polish the edges. And fire polish is a name that just means we're going to slightly melt the edge of the glass, which is a physical into class. We're going to fire polish each of the edges to make them more rounded and smooth. What we're going to do is we are going to heat it in the middle, right, to the point that the molecule move enough that we're going to be able to bend this piece of glass to a 90-degree angle. Proper way to light the Bunsen burner. All right, then I'm going to walk you through how do we cut the, and then lastly, how do we bend it. All right, so if you go room, you'll see I have the lab there, so you could follow through step by step. All right, but I'll read the purpose for you, and that'll give you a second to go to the Google Classroom and open up the bending glass lab. It says we want to light and adjust the gas burner to cut, fire, and bend the glass tube. All right, so the first thing that we do is adjust our burner. All right, and when we're here in the lab, I'm going to tilt you so you can see what's going on. All right, right here, these guys right here have a couple different positions. You've got this angle right here that's 90 degrees. That always indicates that it's off. So there's actually two off positions. You've got this one here, 90 degrees, that's off. And a lot of people think if I do this, I just turn the gas valve on. Right? But in reality, it's back off again because it's 90 degrees. Right? The only way you turn the gas valve on is when it sits here, directly lined up with the valve underneath. Now, I don't have the main gas on yet. All right, so I'm going to leave that there so you can see what that looks like. I'm going to run up and turn on the main gas, and if you listen, you'll hear the methane gas start leaking out. If we do it over here. Sorry, not all the burners work. We're going to shift you guys down here one. All right, so you're looking at these burners here. There you'd be able to hear the gas. All right, so the first thing you always do is simply that. Check to make sure our valve is releasing gas. So that valve's working good. We've got a good valve. Then I'm going to go into my drawer, and I'm going to get my Bunsen burner with the tubing. Okay, so here's my Bunsen burner with its tubing. Now, if you look at the burner, we get the tube right onto the edge, and then we're going to take the other edge of the tube, and we're going to plug it into one of these guys like that. I'll do that on this side of the counter. All right, but if you look at this burner nice and close, you're going to see that it's got what we call an adjustment intake valve. Right? I call them windows. I always say the windows can either be opened or closed. Right? And this controls how much air gets mixed in with the methane. at the beginning, you always want the intake valve closed because it means that the methane can go up the tube and straight up the stem so that I can strike it up here. And if it's all methane, it will light much more easily than if it is mixed with the oxygen from the air. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Here's my burner. Set my burner in a spot you guys can see. I haven't turned my gas on yet. I'll go into my drawer. I'm going to get my striker. All right, the striker is this guy. When I squeeze him, he gives me a spark. All right, and I'm going to go over here to the gas valve. I'm going to turn the gas valve on the whole way. And I'm going to light my burner. Now, because the flame of this guy is blue, it's a little tough to see. All right, so I'm going to go up and turn the lights out on this half of the lab so you can see what the burner looks like. All right, so here's your burner flame. All right, it's that blue. Right, and the first thing we do is we would go over to the valve here. See my hand, I know it's a little dark. And we would just adjust to get comfortable with lowering that flame and raising that flame as we would need to. All right, so I get the flame that way. The other thing we'll do is we'll go down here on the stem and we'll work with that air intake valve. And I will open it. And when you do that, it might be a little tough to see on the video, but inside this bigger blue flame, there's a little blue cone. And I think you can see it, right, in the video, that there's like an intense blue spot, and then there's kind of like a blue halo around it. All right, so the blue halo around it is still plenty hot, but the hottest part of that Bunsen burner is that inner blue cone. All right, so that's what we do first. We learn how to turn on the burner, adjust it, and then get that blue cone so we can get our hot flame. All right, so that was part one of the experiment. Part two is we're going to cut our piece of glass. So I'm going to turn my gas valve off. I'm going to run up to the front, turn on the lights. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of glass tubing, move my burner out of the way momentarily, and I'm going to cut this thing in half using my triangle file from my drawer. All right, so I'm going to go into my drawer. Here's my triangle file. All right, this guy has flat edges and pointed edges. We're going to use the pointed edge on the tube on the spot we want to cut it. So we would look over here to the glass. We're eyeballing about halfway. So I'm going to stay here. I'm going to hold right next to it, and I'm going to put that sharp edge where I want to cut, and I'm going to gently push forward. All right, you're going to hear that not so great scratching glass sound. All right, and you don't want to saw this. It's not like this. You always want to push down and away, down and away, down and away. All right, that way, you don't have any chance of pulling the file back into your hand. That way, if the glass were to break for some reason, glass shards go out this way and not toward you. All right, and if you take a look on the piece of glass now, there'll be a little scratch right there where I have weakened it. And I'm going to take that and roll it away from me and push with both thumbs, and it breaks. Right? Nothing too scary there. I'd always expect it to be more. But what you're going to see is we don't exactly have perfectly smooth edges. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to fire polish, heat this edge so that it melts a little bit. And when we melt it and it cools quickly, it will become rounded again. Right? So I'm going to show you how to fire polish the edge of this piece of cut glass. And so we go back to our burner. Bring my burner back in. Turn it on my gas valve. Get a light. Then I'm going to take my piece of glass and I'm going to hold that piece of glass, this guy here, right down into the burner at a 45-degree angle. And I'm going to rotate it back and forth slowly in that burner flame until it looks like the rounded edged ones that you see in your procedure packet. And there's pictures in there. And I'm just going to go ahead and keep on rotating that. And I'm heating up that glass. I'm causing a physical change. I'm not changing what the substance is. It's still glass before and after. But what I'm doing is I'm changing its physical appearance. And that is a physical change. Heat that guy, heat that guy. I'm trying to heat at the top of that inner blue cone because that's where it's the hottest. The orange that you see in that burner is burning the coating off the glass. But if I don't have anything in it and you see that orange coating, right? If I saw orange in the burner right now, that would mean there's too much oxygen in it. Okay, so I think this is looking good. I'm going to turn my burner off real quick. Show you guys what we're talking about here. Right, so there's that edge. And if you take a look in your procedure packet, you'll see that my edge resembles the one that it's supposed to. And that's called a fire polish. We now just made this end, which I'm not going to touch because it's going to be very hot. This end of the glass is now smooth and round. All right, and we would do that with all four ends. We would do both ends of that piece of glass and then both ends of the other half of glass. All right, what I'm going to do now is jump on to part, and I have to look to see the number. I'm going to jump on to part 4 of the procedure, which is bending the glass tubing. All right, where it tells us take one of your 4 pieces of tubing and hold it lengthwise in the hottest part of the flame, which is that top of the inner blue cone. Rotate the glass tubing until it feels soft enough to bend, and then remove the tubing and bend it to a 90 degree. So holding the tubing in this shape until it hardens and place it on the counter to cool. All right, so I'm going to start my burner back up. Move that to somewhere you guys can see. All right, and this time, I'm going to heat the tube in the center while I'm holding it there, rotating it back and forth on the outside. And what's going to happen eventually, as I spin this guy in the top part of that blue flame, is it's going to start to wobble, right? I'll notice that it's not spinning as tightly as it used to. And that's kind of my indicator that the glass is ready to be bent. And once I start to see that wobble while it's in the flame, I am just gently going to try to pull it to a 90-degree angle. Usually that takes somewhere in the 30 to 45 second range, depending on if you're good at keeping it in the flame. So I'm starting to see that wobble. It's starting to loosen. You can see it in the video as well. So I'm going to gently pull on it, trying to take this guy to 90 degrees. When I'm there, I'm going to take it out. And I'm going to set it on the counter to cool off for a bit. Right. While that's cooling off, what we can do is jump to the table portion. And if you look in your packet, you'll see on the very next page, you've got a table. And that table looks like this. All right. It says sample, angle, and bend. For you guys at home, your sample, all right, we're going to assume that you get 2. All right. It's going to be Tyler 1, Tyler 2, or it's going to be Ange 1, Ange 2, or it's going to be Jimmy 1, Jimmy 2, Hannah 1, Hannah 2. All right. That's all it has to be for the sample. The angle is you're going to analyze your piece of glass, and you're going to look at this angle right here. So we go from here to here to here. I'm deciding what's the degree on that angle. And it doesn't need to be an exact number, right? What I'm saying, if I look at this guy, is I think it's 90 degrees, or I don't think it's 90. It's slightly up, and I think mine is just a little bit opened up toward the top. All right, so I'm going to call that slightly obtuse. Whenever you're above 90, it's obtuse. All right, so your options would be 90 degrees, slightly obtuse, obtuse if it was really bad, if it was like this. Right? Or if it were down in here, if my bend was down like this, it would be acute. And you could be slightly acute or you could be acute. All right, so what I'm going to do is I will send you guys a few pictures of some that your classmates have bent, and use those as the ones that you guys would have. That way I'm not really controlling the outcome. All right, so I'll send you guys some pictures while they're in the back bending their own. All right, but your angle is going to be 90 degrees, acute, obtuse, or slightly acute or obtuse. In the bend column, what you're doing is you're looking at this guy right here, right there. And you're deciding, do I think that that bend is smooth on the inside and the outside? Or do I think that that bend is what I would call pinched, where if this guy were really bent down in like this, right, and it looks like I pinched it off so that nothing could go through here, that would be pinched. Or kinked would be if it went here and it wasn't rounded, it was flat and then flat, right? So there, flat, flat would be kinked. And that's all you put in that column. It's going to be smooth, pinched, or kinked. And that's how you're going to observe your pieces of glass. All right, so I'll send you some pictures of those. You guys can observe those. And then on the back, you'll see that there's the post-lab questions. And here is your format. But I don't need that in the video because that'll be the part we talk about live together in class. All right, so watch this guy whenever I say that I'm going to send you guys back to the lab. All right, and be with me for the other portion where I'm teaching about the classes and phases of matter. And that way you'll been here for everything that we're going to cover in the big, long first period. And for Ange in period 3, it'll just be the lab portion. I hope you guys are doing good. And I will see you guys not long from now.